Welcome back. Reporter panel time. Let me introduce them to you. Mario Parker, managing editor for Bloomberg. Alex Isenstadt, senior political reporter for Axios. And before we came on, Alex said, did anyone ever eat the candy during the show? The answer is yes, and I'll show you how you do it. You see, you unwrap it, and you ask a question, and
Major
then you
Garrett eating candy
then you eat while
on
someone
air.
else is talking. So, Alex, what'd you think of the Graham Plattner interview?
I thought it was really interesting. You know, I'm sorry.
That's how it goes, baby.
You know, it's interesting because you have to see.
He looks very confident.
He looks confident, but there's also these parallels with Trump, right? In that he's obviously a Democrat and he's a liberal Democrat, but like Trump, he's running as a populist. And like Trump, he has all this, there's controversy in his background.
Baggage.
There's lots of baggage. He's made lots of statements that people would find offensive, right? But he's kind of getting through it. And in fact, he has endorsements from people like AOC, from people like Bernie Sanders. And I think
even Martin Heinrich in New Mexico,
correct.
Ruben Gallego in Arizona.
And they're defying Chuck Schumer's wishes in this race. And I think what you're seeing is how populist, if you're running as a populist, you don't necessarily have to play by the same set of rules as more traditional candidates,
and maybe
right?
Mario,
the paradigm's shifting here.
And maybe Mario in the Trump era, baggage that used to seem really heavy 20 years ago isn't as heavy as it used to be.
I was just about to say that off of Alex's point. Not only do voters want a populist message, but some of those flaws, at least speaking right now, some of those flaws are in some ways to voters a sign of authenticity. So if you see a candidate like Graham Plattner, like in your interview just a few minutes ago, where he acknowledged some of the missteps that he's made and said that, you know what, I've grown from those, et cetera, right? So some of that is just appealing to the authenticity that voters want. They're tired of, and I think one thing that Trump showed is that they're tired of some of the just...
Don't like all the polish.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why they like this show. No polish. It's none whatsoever. All right, I want to read the emails that were exchanged, not many, that are in the Epstein files between Ghislaine Maxwell and Melania Trump. Melania writes, Dear G, how are you? Nice story about J.E., meaning Jeffrey Epstein, in New York Mag. You look great on the picture, blah, blah, blah. Ghislaine Maxwell writes back, Sweet Pea, thanks for your message. Actually, plans changed, and I'm now on my way back to New York. Are they going to be able to get together? No, they're not. But what's important, I think, here is professional correspondence does not begin Dear G or Sweet Pea. They knew each other. They're friends. And Melania went out of her way yesterday to say, whatever you might hear in the future about me isn't true. How was Washington processing this, Alex?
Well, first of all, anytime Melania Trump says anything, it's notable because she doesn't say much, right?
Right.
And
super cautious, even by First Lady standards.
So I would say two things here, right? Well, number one, the question is there some kind of story coming that she's trying to get ahead of, or a book? What is it that she trying to get out ahead of something so she can frame the news ahead of time, right? The second thing is, what we know about Melania Trump is that she is very, very, and her team are very attuned to her image, right? And they're very protective of it. And so we've seen Melania Trump's legal team has come out and attacked reports about that she's somehow linked to Jeffrey Epstein in some way. But we haven't really heard her come out and do it. And so based upon some conversations I had with people yesterday, she felt a desire to come out and say something on her own and not just rely on lawyers to do so.
Mary, I want to shift the focus a little bit because we had very important inflation news and consumer confidence news today. Not good news for this White House, not good news for the economy writ large.
Yeah, fastest pace in 4 years.
Of inflation.
Of inflation, fastest pace in 4 years. Consumer sentiment plunged to record lows. None of this is really surprising. In fact, it's affirming, just given what we saw with the unfolding of their war with Iran, right? Gasoline prices shot up over $1 a gallon or so. You go to the gasoline pump, you're paying about $4 a gallon for the cheap stuff, right? Mm-hmm. You're closer to $5 for premium. And you're seeing that weigh on everything from, again, travel to food prices to fertilizer costs for farmers. That's making its way through the system. And to Alex's point, I know he has a great article out just on spending and fundraising. This will be an issue. The economy will be central to this.
Let's pull those two things together, two stories you've recently published. One about a personnel change of significance within the White House to deal with the political atmosphere ahead and the big cash-on-hand advantage Republicans still possess.
Right. So It's going to be a fascinating election because we have never seen a scenario where one party has so much money and such an advantage in terms of resources, but is at the same time facing such a treacherous political climate. And so this is going to be a perfect case study for whether money can surmount a bad
momentum or atmosphere.
Correct.
And James Blair is going to leave the White House and take on a political role for the president.
Correct. So James Blair, who's an incredibly important person in the White House, very close to Susie Wiles, was very chief of staff, very high up on Trump's 2024 campaign. He's going to be taking a leave of absence from the White House to go work on the midterms outside. And so it's an important move just given how high up he is in the building. And the interesting sequence of events for our audience, Alex wrote it, then the president confirmed it. That's always a cool way for things to play out. That's how it goes, right?
Alex Isenstadt, Mario Parker, great to both have you here. Take all the candy because it doesn't eat yourself.